I am the mother of 3 boys. That is my full-time job, trying to feed these people. I have giant children. I've got 3 giant boys. 14, he's getting ready to turn 15 in a couple weeks, and then I have a 13-year-old, and I have a 9-year-old, and y'all, they are just big old boys. My 14-year-old is 6'2", and wears a size 14 shoe. So I'm just trying to feed them. That is my whole life mission, is to try to figure out a new way to cook chicken for dinner every day. Jude, do you know that when you grow up, you can be anything in the world that you want to be? You do know that, right? Like, you can do exactly what your Uncle Vaughn does when you grow up if you want to. You know, if you want to be a doctor, you can be a doctor. If you want to be a lawyer, you can be a lawyer. If you want to be a singer, you can be a singer. You have so much potential, and you can do exactly what your Uncle Vaughn does when you grow up if you'd like to. He looked back at me and he said, Mom, I don't want to do what Uncle Vaughn does when I grow up. I want to do what you do when I grow up. You know where you have that moment, your heart gets warm, your kid does something, and it just makes you want to melt and say, baby, just whatever you want. What do you want? I will do it for you today. And then in the next moment, it all comes crumbling down. Has that ever happened? So I looked back over at my boy and I said, oh, well, buddy, what does mama do? I had expectations about what his answer could be. I didn't know if he would say, Mom, I would love to tell people about Jesus. I didn't know if he'd say, I'd love to write when I grow up. I didn't know exactly what his answer would be. But he looked back at me and he said, Mom, I want to do nothing when I grow up just like you. You do nothing. All day, every day, you do nothing. I said, buddy, you see them clean clothes you got on today? How do you think you got those clean clothes? Or you know how you eat a homemade meal on a fairly regular basis. How do you think those meals are getting cooked? He was like, well, you know, that's just like regular mom stuff. I said, buddy, do you know how every now and then I have the privilege to stand in front of a group of people and share God's word, and that means I have to study first. You know, every now and then there's a new book or a Bible study, and I have to write that thing. And he said, yeah, but you're just sitting behind the computer all day, every day, doing nothing. Yesterday, or the day after I had this conversation with Jude, I thought the timing was interesting, that our publisher emailed me. Sent me an email to keep me updated on something that she knows that I don't normally keep myself updated on. She wanted me to know that a little book I had written called Fervent several years ago, she wanted me to know that that book was on the New York Times bestseller list and that it had won several awards. That's what she emailed to tell me. She knows that, you know, when you're trying to feed 3 boys, you ain't got time to keep up with such things. And so she emailed me to let me know that. I appreciated the email, but I could only chuckle when I read it because I immediately thought back to my conversation with Jude the day before. That while I was doing what to him looked like absolutely nothing, I was actually crafting something that hopefully had amounted to something that had blessed people's lives. And I thought to myself how often it is that I consider my relationship with God in the exact same way, that I feel like God is doing nothing. That I'm praying and he's not hearing, my circumstances are not changing. I look at the details of my life and I feel like he is absolutely doing nothing all day, every day, disconnected from my life, when all the while, most often when we feel like God is doing nothing, y'all, he is crafting chapter after chapter with the story of your life. That he's fully engaged and fully invested in the details of all of our everyday living. He is never not doing nothing. There's a woman named Karen Abercrombie. You all know Karen Abercrombie as Miss Clara in the movie War Room. Karen Abercrombie is a real actress. That's what she does for a living. It is her craft. She went to school for it. Karen Abercrombie came up in the ranks with other actors and actresses who, if I said their names, you would know all of them. She went to school with them. She lived in LA with them. They have all now won Oscars and climbed the ladder and are in magazines. And she came up in the ranks with these same contemporaries. And she explained to me how through the years she has sat back and been so discouraged because she watched them get all the parts for all of these blockbuster movies. She watched them continue to excel in their craft and in their field, and she just felt so left out. Matters got worse when she would turn down roles that she was offered because as a person of faith, she just didn't want to say that, and she didn't want to do that. It just didn't gel well with her. She felt conviction about certain things, so she would just say no. Her agent, she told me when she was in Los Angeles, her agent thought she was crazy that she would turn down some of those roles for which now other people were going to get awards and recognition, but she just couldn't do it, so she just said no. Matters got even worse when her husband needed to move out of Los Angeles for work. He moved into Charlotte, North Carolina, and anybody that is in the field of acting knows if you're serious about it, you do not move out of Los Angeles to Charlotte, North Carolina. And there she sat in Charlotte. And you know what? She just said, okay, I'm discouraged. I'm disappointed. This is not what I had planned for my life. But you know, here I am. So she started an acting school and she just started teaching young people who wanted to be thespians and who wanted to know about the craft and the skill of acting. And then she just kept auditioning for small roles and doing things that she could. She just was faithful with what was in front of her, her husband, her son, the students that the Lord had given her. Little did she know that there were some movie producers that of all the places in the world where they could have filmed a movie, there was just something about a little suburb 20 minutes outside of Charlotte, North Carolina called Concord, where they decided it would be the best place to film a movie called War Room. And I remember when we started shooting, I arrived 2 weeks early. And we sat in a casting room with the directors and the writers of the film. And they said to me, Priscilla, we need to pray. We need to pray because the heart and soul of this movie is this Miss Clara character. And we have auditioned person after person, woman after woman, and we can't find anybody to capture this role. Will you pray with us that God somehow will providentially bring the right person at the right time to fill this position? We grabbed hands together, y'all, 2 weeks before we started, and we asked God to bring us a Miss Clara. The last resort for the writer and the director was to send word throughout the churches in Charlotte. If there's anybody that would like to audition for this role, we'd love to see them. We've tried every which way we can, the traditional ways to find an actor, and we cannot, so please let us know if there's anyone in your church. A couple of days later, Karen Abercrombie, with a wig on, dressed in a big robe, waddled in her 70-something-year-old way. She's in her 50s, but she waddled in as Miss Clara, and they knew immediately she was the one. When War Room began to influence people the way it did on such a broad scale, we were not anticipating that. We're so grateful that the Lord really galvanized his people in all walks of life toward the power of prayer. When that happened and it began to spread far and wide, Miss Clara, Karen Abercrombie, called me up one day with tears rolling down her face, and she said, now I realize why the Lord didn't let me do all of that, because what she discovered is that the directors of the film, any actor they hired, they would look back at their resume. If there was anything that would compromise the integrity of their role in this film, they would not hire them no matter how good they were. So she said to me, Priscilla, I realized that this was reserved for me. And even if the Lord had to move me out of the place I thought I needed to be, to move me to an obscure little city, which was the place I needed to be, I'm so glad that I didn't resist. I just went where he asked me to go. And I just did, just faithfully serving in her church. And there was word that it was her time to receive what was reserved for her. Right now, that when you go back home, the question on the table is going to be, will we do the regular, everyday stuff we've been asked to do, trusting that His providential hand is maneuvering and orchestrating and aligning and preparing for us what He has for us? Or will, in our hubris and our arrogance, our pride, will we shrink back from the regular stuff of life, expecting something different or something more? I believe that the Lord is preparing a table for anybody in this room who's willing to say, yes, Lord.